Okay. And are we recording? All right, well, we'll convene the regular portion of the meeting Wednesday, October 19th, 2022, beginning at 7:10. Just make note for the public in attendance here and on Zoom, we did have an executive session, but I'm going to say that out of that executive session, no action was taken. So with that being said, we'll move right into the first portion of the meeting. And is there public comment? I'll start with public comment by members of the audience. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'll move to folks on Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to make a comment to the planning board? Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes of October 5th, 2022. I did review those meeting minutes, and Zach had a question. I think that was taken care of. On the notes, it would look like, okay, so we're good.
I did it.
Okay, so I don't have any questions on that one, so.
Well, if I got the comment right, was, so the two votes are reversed, and that's been changed, correct? Okay.
Yeah, the copy you have in front of you is the corrected version.
Okay.
Last page.
This, yeah. My copy still has it.
I may have made that copy. I did fix it in the computer, so I have received
Okay.
the.
But it's complete reversal. It's not just changing the last one. It's a.
So
reversal of it, too.
the easy way around that
Okay.
is to, as it pertained to the motion to delay the decision on the third party, I'll make a motion that the minutes be approved, but that my name be taken off of the approval and move to deny, because I did not vote in favor of that
Yes.
motion.
Yeah.
So that's for the record, so we're good to go there. So are there any other changes? Is there a second on that motion? Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? No further conversation. All in favor of the October 5th, 2022 minutes as amended tonight? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are passed. Thank you. And as we move down the agenda, there is, to my understanding, no new business. I'll just look to staff just to confirm there's nothing new that's going, okay, very good. The next item, we're going to move on to old business is MSB 22007. As the board may recall, this is an application and a conversation that came before us at the last meeting. And so the board at that time motion to delay the implementation or voting on the third party. And we are here tonight to decide how we want to move this one forward. It is on the agenda. Does the board have any thoughts as to how they want to move this particular application forward in light of the other motion that is still technically pending?
I would make a motion that we give you amount of time, 15 minutes or so, to present any more information that you thought you weren't able to provide before. And that we will still have to proceed with our process.
That's a
My
motion. So your motion is to grant them the ability to speak with us?
Yes.
For 15 minutes, okay. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, the motion is unanimous. So Roxanne and Sam, you have 15 minutes to talk with the board about some new information that you have related to this application and information that you think is relevant to the processing of your application. So the floor is yours, sir.
All right, awesome. First
Go
off,
to the podium,
okay.
please.
Sam Flintstrom, 406 Main Street.
For 6 Main Street.
That was a surprise to us, the 15-minute limit,
Yeah.
considering the vote that was made at the last meeting. So we came prepared to discuss our application in its entirety, which was our understanding that from the last meeting, the vote that was made. So that is a surprise to us.
Yeah, we'd really like to
Yeah.
do like a turn page checklist of our application, as our understanding is that the planning board who determines that our application is complete. And if you should not find it complete, then we can discuss the things that we need to make it complete. So I think an opportunity that we didn't get on September 7th when we first presented, I know we did do a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. We sort of assumed that you guys had read the application before that. So we would like to sort of walk you through it and sort of check all the boxes that are required of the town of South Berwick on a major site plan review. And make sure that we have all these things. And when there are things that you guys don't have, we can go seek out
The
the
information
information for you.
and come back for a formal review. Speaking of new information, I think at last meeting I mentioned we had created some flow charts on how we sort of interpreted the ordinances and also our path to compliance. If I could hand this out to you all.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
And this is just a flow chart that we created that sort of, we're not professionals, obviously, so don't take this as this is correct. This is how we looked at the ordinances when we decided to create a application for you guys. And how this process works in this town, because as you guys know, obviously the ordinances are quite confusing.
So sorry, it's a little small, but what would you call that color? Beige. Beige ones are ordinance references. Yellows, blue diamonds are decisions which are to be made by the planning board or the town. Green is something that would be submitted by us, the applicant. And then yellows are meetings. So where we thought we sort of lost our opportunity was on that first yellow, which is the sketch plan discussion. And you'll notice in the ordinance, it says that the board shall take this opportunity to provide input on the design of the site and what, if any, additional information will be required for the formal review. So that's sort of what we were hoping to accomplish here today, is continue the discussion from the September 7th meeting that we weren't able to complete.
This is how we see the ordinances drawing out how this process works. If you guys have any comments, disagreements, this is a conversation, so this isn't we're not trying to have a lesson here. We want to work together, make sure that we're all under the same understanding for us and future applicants.
So I just want to be clear because, we're operating here under a timeline.
Mhm.
I read the application.
Okay,
You gave us the presentation.
sure.
So again, at the last meeting, I got the sense that you wanted to approach us again and have some further conversation. And my interpretation of that was on new material that you felt was relevant to the applicant. So that's the direction that we're going in tonight. That's how we posted it on the agenda. So,
Okay.
What
Was
I
that the
would- what I
understanding
would
of
say-
the others that voted? But I
Yeah.
don't mind me asking.
so that's not important. What's important right now, sir, is this individual here made a motion.
Okay.
It was seconded.
Okay.
And we're going to honor that motion. So
Okay.
for purposes of efficiency and moving through, if you have new information that you'd like us to consider, now is the time to do it. So for example, you took issue with some memo regarding the
Sure. The shoreline setback.
shoreline setback.
Yep.
So that would, to me, would be new information that if you needed to convey that to us, refer to the section
Sure.
and we can go through and look
Do
at
you
it.
all have a copy of that memo?
I do remember the memo. I don't know if it's in there.
So this memo was received by you all shortly before the September 7th meeting. As you'll see, our name is on the 2. We did not receive this memo, which was also concerning to us because we weren't able to cross-examine the information on it at that September 7th meeting.
Particularly since that seemed to be the memo that pushed our application to a third-party review. If you look through our flow chart, we thought that meeting was so that the planning board could determine if our application was complete or not. Okay, and that the applicants would have the opportunity to provide any additional information requested.
So of concern to us on this is the 250-foot setback, the last statement there. The shoreline zone is defined by 250 feet from the normal high water mark. But the setback for structures in the B1 zone is only 25, which is important.
And we have a chart, but
Do you want me to
yeah,
bring
sure.
it up? All right. The new, more new information we have is our path to compliance document. And this information details how we can get through the ordinances from our application to approval to run a restaurant in both the B1 and Shoreline and Slocum. So I guess in the interest of discussion, and I know this is a lot of new information. I mean, we would like to have an opportunity to go over these with you all.
And go over our application and the variances that were of concern. We think that we can walk through them with you together to figure out how this is possible, and we could shorten the list of things that would be required for third party.
Correct.
So that it wouldn't be, you know, sort of an open checkbook to a third party providing our application without really any direction that they would be looking for. We understand that the planning board is the only group of people that can find our application complete. And I think that's basically what we're looking for today, is either it's incomplete or it is complete.
Or it's complete or it's incomplete, and we need to provide this to make it complete.
Right, with
And
some
we're
with action items that we can take when we leave here.
Yeah, because we're happy to go to our own resources, which ourselves, you know, contractors that we could hire, architects, engineers, developers, etc. So we sort of get the first whack at answering your questions and have control over the costs and the time associated with that.
Considering that the variances were of concern, like, yeah, I guess I already said this, but, you know, there's only 10 of them, and I think if we could walk through them together, I think you guys might find it a little less daunting. As to why we would need a third party to look them over.
Or at least in its entirety.
Sorry.
If there's information that you want us to know and consider regarding those variances, please continue.
Well, we'd like to sort of have a discussion about it.
Okay.
If everyone could open our application. at The end. Well, actually, I guess we would,
Yeah, where do you want to start?
we weren't expecting to have only 15 minutes today, and so our goal was to sort of go through these check boxes with you and show you that our application is as complete as possible. Find holes in our application, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
So
Tell us
if
what you
if you guys would
need.
be willing to sort of open up our application and we could maybe walk through it as swiftly as possible, that would be great. But
Motion's on the table, motion been made, 15 minutes, we're sticking to that. New
Okay.
information.
Sure.
We could get a motion afterward.
we just don't really feel like we got this opportunity on the first time, so if we could have more than 15 minutes, that would be great.
Yeah, it will be.
So I'll deduct the benefit of this answer. Have you seen this? And have you had an opportunity to weigh in on the application?
The application, when they first came into the planning office, they wanted it to go directly to the planning board to make the completion determination.
According to the ordinances, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you can
But I
find that in our
have
flow
not
chart.
seen this information that they just presented.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and we believe, if you look at that flow chart, we think that it's important to distinguish between the formal application and the sketch plan discussion and the sketch plan application. It's our interpretation that the sketch plan discussion and application is intended to provide a presentation to the board about the project itself, and as well as an application that they can review and determine whether it's complete, provide information as to what's needed to make it complete. And then the second discussion again, this is our interpretation. The formal discussion would be more related to, okay, this project is in compliance with the ordinance. So we see it as sort of a twofold, well, then the third would be the public hearing and then the finding of fact. It's a multi-fold process in our opinion, and that first discussion that we were at was not so much ordinance related as you alluded to, Tammy, maybe that review is required, but is the application complete? And can we get to that point where we discuss ordinances and whether the project's in compliance with, other aspects other than 140? Talking about,
Copies of the one application.
no, I didn't get to that. I guess we should talk about waivers since we have the time here. Were there any waivers that were of particular concern to you all that stuck out as, whoa, we need a third party for this? Or was it just the vast quantity of the waivers? Because I think we can pin down pretty quickly the waivers in terms of their complexity.
Okay, if you could turn to the, to page 31 of our application.
Yeah.
You'll find waiver request number 1. It also coincides with
Waiver 4.
waiver 4 and the check, you can see it listed in pink on our actual application. Location of all erosion and sediment control measures.
So as the date of our application, the work that we were doing when we demoed the trailer and thereafter with respect to regrading the land had been complete. We didn't anticipate bringing back anything else to, move any dirt or otherwise. So to provide you with an erosion and sediment control measure, the location of them, in addition to them being included in our demo permit from 2021, it just seemed duplicative to us and not applicable at all, like for this application, which was for the change of use. Similarly, waiver 4 is states refer to waiver 1 because the application mentions this point twice. Location of
Waiver
waiver
request
2.
number 2.
Location of all buffers and setbacks in the shoreland/slope protection and resource protection districts, or as required by the subdivision ordinance. So we stated this one wasn't applicable. I can see a little confusion here because there is the 25-foot setback. However, the location of that shoreline and slope district encompasses the entire property. So it was sort of like, okay, well, we could put us on the plan, we can put a circle around the entire property, say this is in the shoreline and slope. But you'll also notice at the beginning of the application, in the general notes, it states that as well. So it's more a narrative than showing it on a plan.
So the waiver was simply just for a checkbox that we couldn't really fulfill because it was not applicable.
Waiver 3, stormwater management plan prepared by a licensed engineer in the state of Maine. Any site triggering DEP chapter 500. Stormwater management rules shall conform to those regs. Maine DEP chapter 500 is only triggered if the project's over an acre. Whole lot's 0.23 acres. Waiver
request
4,
number 4.
as I mentioned, same
The
as 1.
duplicate of 1.
Waiver 5, existing and proposed topography at a minimum of 5-foot contours. The board may require 2-foot contours if conditions warrant such mapping. Location of 100-year floodplain shall also be shown in the base flood elevations given. Indicate areas within the proposed site and within 50 feet of the proposed site where ground removal or filling is required. Give its approximate volume in cubic yards. Soils map, York County.
Basically, the
Soil
existing
survey.
existing topography is the proposed.
It's not like what we just
And
said.
this waiver covers 4 different checkboxes on the application, which you'll note in pink references waiver 5.
Yeah, the application, has those check boxes, but, yeah, like I'm sort of just repeating what Roxanne said. Each waiver is a specific ordinance, and it could relate to multiple check boxes, if that makes sense. For example, this one, soil survey, location of floodplain, existing proposed topography. Those are different check boxes on the application. Yeah,
Waiver 6.
6, landscape plan, again, sort of the same rigmarole. Traffic flow patterns, we mentioned this one last time. There's no, unlike a subdivision where you're actually gonna have like traffic going in and out, or a restaurant that has parking and loading that's like on the property, this is sort of just a business on Main Street, so.
And
there's-
we did review some finding of facts for Pied Cow, the marijuana shop on Main Street. And they requested a waiver for this specific checkbox on the application. And we sort of consider ourselves a similar type of establishment in terms of we're not building a subdivision. It's just already there.
Yeah, it's an existing
It's an
structure that's
existing
being
structure, so.
change of use. Granted, we'll have more, arguably more people, but in terms of the vehicular traffic on the site, it doesn't seem to be different to us. Again, these are all points of discussion that we can have, like, this is, again, our application, it's not our
interpretation.
formal application. We really just want to have a discussion, so you guys can provide input on all of this, and we can refine it as necessary.
Waiver request 8, location of all present and proposed septic tanks and leach fields. There are
Obviously.
none, so another waiver, sort of an easy one.
9, location of storm drainage system existing and proposed. At the time of this application, we didn't have any storm drainage, but we've since added a 4-inch PVC pipe to collect the gutters off the building. So if we were to go to formal, we would add that into this.
Waiver request 10, that was missing an actual number, but it's 10.
Yeah, oh,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, applications for major site plan review must include the above information plus sections 14077 D2 L through R. Well, if you look in the ordinance, L through R doesn't exist. So we
Yeah.
actually put that as a placeholder just to fulfill a
Acknowledge.
requirement and acknowledge
Yeah.
that we couldn't check off that box because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are doing other meetings to rewrite part of the major site plan review.
Yeah. and we-
Ordinance, so
we
that
think
might be
that's
of
awesome.
noteworthy
Like,
for
we think
you.
That's good. Like,
Yeah,
this
this
is
is a very confusing
Yeah.
ordinance, like
like,
for sure.
and then the last one was.
The last one was a variance, but I think that was semantics as to why that maybe was a little bit more complicated. It's
For
also
the-
just a waiver.
Yeah, this is for the off-street parking. So 14024H, off-street parking and loading in non-residential restaurant and takeout restaurant, 1 space per 3 seating capacity. So our explanation, we gave 5 bullet points as to why we believe that we should be able to have a waiver from off-street parking. And I think there was a question as to whether the board has the authority to waive this requirement.
Mhm.
And if you read down to 140-24L, same section, it says where a new use on expanded use in an existing building cannot meet the above parking standards. And you have to read that section related to parking standards. The planning board may, following minor site plan review, and I know this is major, but everything in major is also in minor. In accordance with this chapter, or following minor site plan review, in accordance with this chapter, waive the above requirements. So the
the
planning
ordinance-
board does have the authority according to the ordinance to waive off-street parking, off-street parking requirements.
Again, that's 140-24L. If you'd like to look that up. So yeah, I guess we really wanted to come back here today to do a turn page discussion because we don't think that this needs to be discussed with another engineering firm that would have to then take the time to read through the town's ordinances to really even get a grasp on how they can make this possible. So that's why we'd like to.
Yeah, we
Okay.
consider ourselves subject matter experts on this project now. I mean, we've worked a lot to get to this point. So, I mean, the research and the knowledge we believe is in this room
Mhm.
and.
And hiring any other third party would just be a money suck and a time suck. And quite frankly, I think, especially since you guys are attempting to rewrite this major site plan review ordinance, this could be like a really good learning opportunity.
To learn the ordinance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do the board members have any questions? I heard something weird.
I have a couple. One,
Okay,
I'll state off, I have a couple, but I'll
Yeah.
start with one is to your last statement. I'm not an engineer or an expert.
Mhm.
And to that end, you state you are the experts and I should just listen to you. I find that a conflict of interest. And my job as a position on a planning board is to serve the interest of the town and to make sure that we're doing everything in an equal way for everyone. And so I'm trying to keep the town's interest in mind as well as support
Of course,
new
yeah.
Yeah.
economy and new ventures in the town.
Yep.
So therein, that one reason there is enough reason for me to consider a third-party review, which we've come up with. So as I stated before in previous meetings, that's part
Sure.
of the context. Second,
Yeah.
this is going back actually, I think from our previous meeting 2 weeks ago. One thing that comes to mind with a wine and beer garden, you described in your layout, but one thing I thought was missing is where is it that you are confining or controlling who is access to your facility? Minors, underage, how are you IDing people?
Sure. So, excuse me. The first question. By subject matter expert, I sort of meant like, you know, on this property, on the project itself. I don't mean to say we are a subject matter expert in, you know, stormwater management
Erosion,
and control,
sediment,
erosion,
things like
sediment,
that.
none of that, just this property. So if we were given the opportunity to go seek information that you would request, we would do it through our own third parties as opposed to ones that would be through the town. And if you don't,
Conflict of interest.
I don't believe it's conflict of interest if it's another party. Just think about the engineer that sat here before you 2 weeks ago, and you were talking about soil studies, right? Was the town hiring the soils engineer, or were they? Okay. Think about, you know, the building being built. Are you hiring a mechanical engineer to do the plumbing and mechanical, or is the owner? It's not a conflict of interest. Like, if we hire other people,
They're putting their
They're-
professional stamp
yeah,
on whatever
they're-
they provide.
they have a license, and it's their ethical requirement to act that way. So it's not really,
Us, it's just, we think we can receive this information faster, especially if we have a more detailed request from you guys of what specifically you're looking for, rather than handing over our application as
We're
a
looking
whole.
for consultation to support our decision.
yes,
That source is important. That's what we're.
right, and if the source is an entity that engages regularly in that conduct in the state and is properly licensed, there should not be any issue with it. It's just a matter of perhaps,
We can move on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
and to answer your second question, yeah, that's a valid discussion point. We can certainly provide a map showing the bounds of where alcohol would be served. And depending on the class of license that you get, you don't need to ID people to go into the establishment, so we're going for a tavern license, which is one where you have to. Okay. So,
This will be something that I think we can put up to the town council.
Thanks.
Any other board members? Questions, comments? So like I do with all applications, is there any information that the town staff wants us to be aware of since we're hearing new information on this?
Yes, please.
Ken, the floor is yours.
And backtrack 2 weeks, so the last 2 weeks and 2 weeks only, okay? You got your answer from Tammy, a question that you had asked previously. That's a fine enough answer. Over the last 2 weeks, we've had a couple different individuals that have come into the code office. One, I believe, without an appointment, one that scheduled an appointment, to just voice a list of concerns, you know, questions and concerns on the site at 406 Main Street. Some of those concerns was, one, the retaining wall that was built on site without any inspection. There's no written evidence of inspection of that retaining wall. It's actually built in the easement of the sewer district. So we contacted the sewer district, and my number one question when I find out information like this is, did they call the sewer district? Did they get approval to build something in that easement? The answer is no, they didn't. And we have a letter from the sewer district here that we received today. you guys want a copy, everything's right here. Yep. Then, so that's,
How about,
Are these
let
Yep.
different?
us
yeah,
read
you
it.
can take one.
Let
They're
us-
all the same.
Okay.
Yep.
If we could just take a,
Yeah, go ahead.
read it.
I'm gonna give you guys stuff because they're sticky.
Okay.
So, you have one. That's two, Sam, that's for you.
Did you?
Okay, I'm good. You can continue. I've read the
Okay.
letter.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, so another thing is we had the, his name is Scott Brown. He came in, when you go for any kind of restaurant license, you have to contact the state. They come down and they do an inspection. We had Scott Brown stop into the office yesterday. He had many concerns. His first concern is whether or not the applicant got a commercial electric license through the state or notification. You go online, you fill out the form, you get your notification right away, you move on. His biggest concern was a question that came up from your applicant on washable walls and whether or not electrical outlets can protrude an inch away from the wall. And I'm just gonna give you a letter from the state electrical inspector saying at this time, they have not applied for their commercial license, but notification for that. You guys have to say, okay, I already gave you one. Work is being done in the building. There was a stop work order put on the building. So a letter was written on August 10th for stop work. And then the notice was put on the building on September 1st when stop work didn't stop. And then another letter of violation was written, and there's not copies of that, but I will hand it out to you guys. On September 30th, when work did not stop. And to my knowledge, they're still doing work over there. We have not been contacted that they are, but there's a big opening in the back of the building that could potentially be a life safety issue for any kids, pets that enter that building. It's a big, I can show you a picture if you want. It's a big hole in the back of the building. But I just want the board to know there are active violations on this property. And I'm just gonna let you guys kind of go down through that. Yep.
We'll have a chance to talk after this. correct?
Yeah.
No,
It's
Wow.
very necessary that we have a chance to talk after this.
Those are some strong accusations.
Strong accusations.
They're actually all fact, just to let you know, and there's as evidence of it. And I got one more thing for you too.
okay.
Violations, just so the board's aware, violations within the code office don't hold up an application. It's really just a notification. The planning board can vote to, delay an application if they find it necessary, but for this, the stop work order was only placed until they got planning board approval to move forward. Once they go through your entire process, they can continue to work there. And so for this instance, I wouldn't recommend holding anything up.
Sounds like a lot going on.
It's important to note that we hadn't had a permit.
It's also important to note that
Excuse me.
no one's
Yeah, right.
The letter states that it was revoked if you read this, yeah. is a process that the planning board has to take before any kind of building permit can be issued on any property going in front of the board. That process was not followed, which led to the revoke notice that you see.
Okay,
Moving on, last piece of paper I have here. Did I give you this? You guys received this
The
by
one from
email?
Paul?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the applicant has reached out to the state building inspector, state building official, Paul Demers. He's in charge of all the trainings for CEOs, and they reached out, and then they followed up. They also reached out to the fire marshal's office for their application. If I could just read quickly what Paul Demers has to say from the state level. Good morning, Mr. Flingstrom. Thank you for reaching out and explaining your situation with the intended development in South Berwick. I do want to clarify briefly what we discussed in early September, as I started the email at this time in hopes that it will prevent any use of this office in discussions as you move forward. I want to restate my role is strictly as a training certification side of the CEO program in Maine. I was responding because you had reached out to Brad Boone in the fire marshal's office, plans review division, and Brad was hoping I could help. I've included Bradley in this response to assist him should you have any additional state construction or disability rights permitting questions. To be clear, I have no jurisdiction in this matter, and the local enforcement office is where this matter should be addressed. In our conversation, I did note that you are changing the use of the property from a barber shop with a manufactured home on site to a potential eating place with liquor service on a limited scale due to small size of the structure. You are also hoping for a larger outdoor seating and service area. You are located in an area that is part of the several local zoning regulations that again are subject to local CEO, planning board, or site plan review process. You mentioned the stream and river, which bring up shoreline zoning and potentially flood zoning regulations that might be another issue. You may also be required to address with any stormwater or site alterations like removal of the mobile home and grading for outside seating. I want to be clear that my understanding of this entire project is based on your information, which leads me to offer the following potential issues as we discussed. First, the local zoning issue should be addressed before the issuance of a building permit that risks you doing work that may not be approved at a later day. This is apparent in the stop work order as recognition of the earlier permit that may have been out of order for whatever reasons. I would again stress that your solution may lie in the meeting with the planning board. You are indicating you are attending the following night. If you intend to open a food or liquor license service facility, several other approvals are also required, and based on your comments, it appears you understood some of that. I again would caution the action to proceed until you have all the parts to this complex puzzle. While your building may be small in size, it still may be subject to all the same regulations as a larger site. I'm sending this to you. As I said, I'm copying the local CEO as part of the response, so all parties are aware of our conversation. I cannot stress enough of the need for you to follow the local processes to ensure of the approvals before you begin any serious development activities. You did indicate that your progress has been limited due to family and other obligations. So the result delay had seen a change in local code staffing, which prompts me again to stress the need to initiate a new line of communication that may save you undue complications. That communication is not open, has not been opened. Even with a stop work order, communication is always the key element to avoid any unexpected costs and frustration. You had indicated some building and site activities had started without completing the land use review portion of process, which I advised were tied together, and that may have been the cause of the recent order, which is the stop work order. You certainly appeared to have reviewed the local ordinance enough to understand whatever local appeal process you have available to you. That again is at the local level. I do hope that the matter can be resolved and you are successful with the reuse of the property. If you have any additional guidance, please feel free to reach out. Paul Demers.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add? Or are you done?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Question for Tammy. My understanding, if correct, is that these cannot necessarily, or don't have to hold up the application. Is kind of what I understand from your proposal here. However, my real question is, now that we have this additional information, and I haven't read it all, as I don't think anyone, no one here has. There's a couple issues moving forward. One, I think that needs to be clarified as part of the whole entire permitting procedure in general. And however many items you listed off are items that need to be rectified, we would have the ability to make those conditions of a permit, conditions of approval,
Mhm.
either upfront or when we get to the findings of fact stage. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because these would, in my view, would need to be rectified before the issuance of the permit. Okay, thank you. So part of this issue is I want to go back and I'm looking at 14077G subset 1B. Let's see here where it is. I'm just going to read the kind of the first item because there's no question. It's without a doubt that we have the ability to send for a third-party review. So I just want to say at any stage of the review process, that's in the first sentence. I'm not prepared myself to engage in further conversations on this because I need that third-party review to assess the application and to help us determine the completeness of the application, to help us determine the validity and merit of all of the associated waiver requests. To back up and agree with the points that you made earlier, Zach, in terms of having that, these are my words, that independent review. And it's wonderful that you're here telling us what we should be doing or how we could be doing this according to your interpretation of the ordinance. That's fine. You're welcome to do that. And so, but I think we have the ability, and I think we need to exercise that ability at the initial stage of this application to assess it. And so that's where I'm coming from. I don't have any further questions other than to say these violations need to be addressed as part of any approval process. So where does that go from here if a motion's made? So number one, I want to let me back up. We still have that motion on the table for the third party review. For the process. But before I actually get that, I'm going to back myself up and make sure before I go on, are there any other comments from the board members? Any other questions? Okay, so therefore we get back to the original motion on the table, the third party review. I think this is a prime example of the need and requirement for a third party review. With that being said, that was the original motion on the table. And so that being said, I want to revisit that. And what is the pleasure of the board as we move forward on this?
Would you like me to review the 2 quotes that came in?
I remember the 2 quotes. I'd like to handle that, you know. There was conversation at the last meeting about what entity to use. And so there was conversations about, I think it was Sebago Technics. That was deemed to be only a portion of the actual review because we would need to engage another professional on the shoreline portion. And then my understanding is the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission would accomplish the whole entire thing. So that's where we are. I have no further questions. That is the question. Thank you for new information. Thank you for the new information that you gave us. I do have some notes, but that is the question before the board tonight that we're going to talk about now. So where does the board want to go with this issue tonight? You know, we can rescind it and move on with the application review. Or we can,
The third party.
I'm sorry, yeah, we can rescind the third-party review because we would have to do that in order to effectively move forward, or we need to take action on that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we move forward with the third-party review and select Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission for that third-party review. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'm sorry, I'm just looking to see, to make sure that we're on the same page as which one you're.
Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission.
Okay, that was the one on the,
is
that was
local.
the one on the first page.
Yes,
Okay,
they're a local regional council of governments planning commission. They've been around for a long time. They have a vast amount of experience in not only shoreline zoning, but planning in general.
and they were the one that
They-
had, they were,
they-
sorry.
They staff a lot of planning boards in towns. You may recall, they actually did that for us as well, prior to Tammy coming on board. So in my mind, there's no doubt the expertise exists to have that group move forward with it. And that would encompass, I believe, a full review of the application, which is really what we're after.
And that was the one that was all encompassing, whereas this Vigo Technics
Yes,
would be the.
Yep.
Southern.
yep. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further conversation on moving the third-party review to Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission? Zach?
Yes, I believe, I really think we need to move this to a third party review. And one or the other, I believe, to me, the one that has a complete bill, we know what the costs are, that makes the most sense. But I do want to remind myself, at least, of which one that you had commented on in the last meeting.
Yeah, I
Another
said Spigo Technics because we didn't really have a refined question or scope. And theirs was a not to exceed, but
Okay.
and theirs is a roughly.
That's really all I need. I mean, we
Tammy,
can go on and on, but part of it is we have to be very careful about what kind of input we can make. So
Follow-up
if I'm
question.
overstepping.
When you reached out to the companies, did you give them all the papers where a third-party review, pretty standard? It's not an uncommon thing.
No, and the two that got back from you said they do third-party reviews all the
Fair
time.
enough. Okay, so this is not a out of the park question that is uncommon.
With that,
Thank you.
I'm-
So it's been moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. And I'll remind the board at this point, the motion has been to send it to third-party review. When that report is received, you'll receive a copy. And at that point in time, the conversation will be
I received a copy of what?
the report from the third-party review.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah,
Right, board members. So let's see, the next item here. As we move on, does anybody have the agenda?
Just member comments next.
Is that where we are, member comments? Thank you. All right, we've completed old business. Are there any member comments? Tammy, go ahead.
Yeah. So you could send a memo to the town council regarding that joint committee with you
Yes.
and the other planning board member.
I talked to Tim about it. It's been on their agenda a couple of times. They do want to start it, but they're hoping to be able to start it after the election of the new members. They don't want to have the two members that are either one leaving and one up for reelection vote on something that they're not going to have a part of. So that's something that will come back, and I have asked him to keep me definitely informed when it's on the agenda, so that I can find out and let the planning board know of the outcome of that committee meeting. And when their first meeting is going to be presented, so that we can start working on it.
Someone you had sent a tentative date for, and it's changed.
Yes.
Okay, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, there will be no workshop on November 14th. And November 29th is still a go. That's a joint council meeting. November 29th.
I thought that was November 15th.
They
It
had
was
to move
November
it.
1st.
They had to move it because a couple of the members had conflicts. So
Okay.
the 29th is still on the
So
agenda,
the 20 okay.
November 29th,
And what one was that for?
the
The
cannabis.
canvas, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. And that's to do the zoning portion that we passed, or the board
Correct.
passed, and the licensing. Got it. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Just kind of off the top, does the new town council, does that take effect right after the election, or is that January 1st?
No.
Is it right after
so
the election?
Election is this. so
November 8th.
November 1st, it's November 8th. So,
So the question is, did they take office immediately,
no, they
like in the
take,
next meeting?
yes, the
Okay.
next office, that's,
Okay,
I don't
so,
know the dates.
fair
in front of
enough.
me.
Okay, that answers the question in terms of how long we'll be waiting. Okay. All right.
So also sitting in front of you are nice new, I know it's dated 2021, but these are all of the new land use laws. SMPDC has put this together. And it comes through, it includes LV 2003. They were able to get that into the book. Okay, so that is something that we are going to have to start working on fairly quickly. I haven't memorized where it's located in there, but if you try to read it all at once, I really wish you luck.
It's a lot of pages, of small writing.
There's a lot of information in there. I've also provided to the chair of the planning board, the MMA planning board manual. Again, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
don't read it, try to read it all at once. It's not like a novel where you can pick it up and put it down.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
and that's all I have
Great,
for the
thank you.
moment. Yes, sir.
What will be the process on these changes for LD 2003?
They have to be in place by 1 July of 2023. We've just received some guidance on
We don't have any particular process
it
set up.
about the last week.
Does that involve the,
That's for the housing.
Right.
Increasing
affordable
the,
housing,
yeah,
right.
affordable density improvements, additional or accessory dwelling units.
We do have a process of trying to get together with the council, because if we're to go through the
Yes.
traditional process, we'll start and then we'll review it for 5 or 6 months. And then we'll send it over to the town council, then they'll have to review it, and then we won't meet that deadline. So the hope is by working
comprehensive
together.
plan meshes in here?
We're
somewhere
hoping.
too, doesn't it?
Well,
Yeah, we're hoping that it's not gonna be done by then, but
Right, but that's what
Yeah.
the hopes are for any town that has the LD
Yeah.
2003 sitting in front of them, which is all municipalities in the state of Maine, plantations, cities, towns, all of them.
Mhm.
So, and with the new guidance that came through, I have already talked to the economic developer because she's a specialist with grants. So that we can potentially get a grant and get assistance with ensuring that the town of South Berwick's land use ordinance regarding LD 2003 will be up to snuff and the way it should be worded to both mesh what we currently have with what LD 2003 is trying to attain. And it's extremely important because of the housing dilemma that we are facing at this point in time, between lack of rentals, affordable housing, and they've even offered guidance on the affordable housing piece, because if you read the original PowerPoint that Paul Schumacher went over with you. The affordable housing piece is a 30-year commitment by a developer. And that's in talking with other municipalities to see how they want to take and handle it, to see if I could gain some insight on potentially how to get the town council and the planning board all on the same page. We all talk. You know, especially with something this major. So doing the grant is gonna be something that I'm going to shoot for in hopes that it'll take the town council, the planning board, everybody's together. We have a workshop.
That's the intent, that's what we're trying to do.
There's gonna be
Correct.
some changes to the zoning. Definitions of some zoning, I take it, would that be? am I correct there?
Potential, everything is a potential right now because I have not torn apart the ordinance yet. I don't want to get into that until I know exactly how we're headed and exactly how the town council wants to head and the planning board. You were presented it, they were presented it. I'm hoping that Paul Schumacher from SMPDC is willing to do a new one because of the additional guidance. I'm hoping we can do a joint one. And then the questions they have may be different than your questions. So hence, between the two boards, we get more questions answered in one meeting.
Will it be possible to have a schedule set up as to action points that are gonna take place?
Yeah.
Items that we considered at certain points along the line, so people know what's going on. So,
Yeah, I will do my best to get that out to you. If we can get the workshops in place and the presentations in place, I'll definitely get those schedules out to you.
Thank you, it's been very helpful. It'll be an interesting 7 months ahead of us.
Yeah, if you happen to know of other planning board members in other towns, ask them how they're handling it, to see if there's a
Yeah, they're not.
suggestion out there that potentially we haven't even thought of yet. You know, people approach it different ways, you know, different creativity along those lines. So,
Thank you. Bill, do you have anything? Did I ask you that? I'm good. Yeah, good, okay. I'm good. Okay, that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
The move,
Second.
second, all in favor? Aye. Well, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Hold up.
Can you shut off the video? Yeah. Thanks.
We're not doing any electrical work. We called because we wanted to make sure that the prices that we got were that way. For the health department.